Can we just start with selection,
Yeah.
in particular the outs, Mackenzie and Powell-Pepper?
Yeah. Well, one's injured, and that's Trent. He's got a tight hamstring, so we weren't taking any unnecessary risks with that. At this stage of the year, it's obvious that we don't want that to turn into a 3 or 4 week situation, which hopefully we can avoid that. And Sam's out just purely on form. His form hasn't been at the level in his own mind that would be what he would be satisfied with. So we made a selection decision based on that.
What do you think Sam was lacking?
He just hasn't been able to influence the game like he would normally influence the game. Sam's greatest assets to us is his ability to hunt and get after the opposition, and put an enormous amount of physical and implied pressure on the opposition. He hasn't quite been able to get that job at the level he would like it to be, and we need it to be.
Still a chance to play finals? Still a chance to play finals, Sammy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He's been in our team basically for most of the season when he's been available, so it's not something that we do lightly to put Sam out of the side. We think he's a very valuable part of our team in its best shape, but you also need to be able to play in your best form.
So when did Mackenzie start feeling the hammy?
He was a little, to be fair, he was early in the week, he was a little bit, he pulled up a little bit ginger after the game, but as you've seen, he got through the whole game, so it wasn't an issue for us, but he was more tight, but every time we talk about tight hamstrings, it ends up being longer than tight hamstrings, but... and Trent's got a little bit of history as a soft tissue player, so we're just very mindful of that. He trained yesterday pretty well, basically got through most of the session, but again at the end, conversation I had with him is he just didn't quite feel like he could perhaps push it and risk it.
So you've gone for the 4 tools again. Was there the temptation after Dixon seemed to be struggling last week to just give him a week off?
Yeah, no, he's not. Charlie's not struggling. Charlie's, at this time of the year, he's like everyone. He's banged up and bashed up a little bit, but that's the role he plays. I've said this all the time about him. He's certainly not struggling. I mean, the conversation I would have would be, if I was to have that conversation with Charlie, I'd get an enormous amount of resistance from Charlie. Don't you dare think about not letting me play, because that's, game day is what these blokes live for, and he's like everyone. He wants to be out there every time he can, and on game day doesn't want to miss any games. And we don't, I'm not a coach typically who messes around with people who are in form or not in form, and we like to make sure that we keep the side together as long as we can.
Games model up close? Yeah,
very close. But again, like we did with Fantasia and Butters when they come back, we did give them a week. Robbie, we certainly didn't. So if you want to put a comparison, Robbie was, probably gets the Robbie Gray card a little bit, where he gets to come in and play because he's such a talented player and has been for a long period of time. Whereas the other boys, we've made sure that we give them a run first to make sure that it helps them get to their best form as quick as we can.
Ken, the record shows that Port can struggle after a showdown. There's a bit of a letdown. It's a draining game for them. Have you factored that in as to how you go into Carlton with some sort of something different?
No, not really. I think we've, as I said, over the last couple of years, we've shown we're a pretty consistent football team more often than not, and regardless of whether they're showdowns or against other teams in the competition, we just approach each week the same. We know our best is needed every time we play AFL football, so we can't manufacture anything that's different after the back of a showdown or try and make it more important, because every game's important.
Is your sense that Mackenzie probably just missed the one?
That's my feel, but that's not always going to be perfect and accurate. But yeah, that's what we're hopeful of. But again, I don't want to sit here next week and say, he said he might only miss one. Well, I don't 100% don't know that will be the case, but we're very hopeful that will be the case.
And Ken, the importance of, double chance, destiny's in your hands, you win this one, it's locked in. It's huge for the footy club, isn't it?
Yeah, every week, but it clearly now this week means that we do get, first thing you do is you want to qualify for finals. We've done that a few weeks back, and the next thing is you want to qualify as high as you can. We get our first chance this week to absolutely lock in a top 4 position on the ladder, and then the week after or whatever that might be, we're hopeful that we can qualify higher than that even if we can, but we need to get this week done first. So we sort of like to make sure we do it step by step, and when the opportunities present, we try to maximise them. Doesn't mean we will. We've seen last week, things happen every week in this competition that don't always go to script.
How did you pull apart that forward movement last week? What have you learnt from that showdown that maybe you need to correct this week?
There's lots out of the showdown that just wasn't at the level we'd like it to be. Now we reflect and go, well, that was a bit of the pressure of showdown and what the performance of a showdown can do to every team. And I think the reality was that we didn't play at a level that we would like to play at, as consistent as we like, whether that was in the forward movement or whether it was in ball movement or defence. We just didn't quite have everything at a level that we need. I think the boys have trained really well again this week. I thought last week we didn't have a great week on the track. for a number of reasons, but I thought this week we certainly had a much better week on the track.
Do you feel the script that keeps coming against you is interesting? Like Carlton this week there's a fair bit of pressure on David Teague, there's Mark Murphy's 300, it's like you keep walking into things?
Yeah, but I think that's just it's outside our control, and I think the thing that we talked about particularly last week was what can we control and what can we make sure we focus on in any of these opportunities. And for us, it's all around. And we got, as you said before, we've got a great opportunity this week to lock in a top 4 position on the way. That's got to mean a lot, and a lot to us as a football club. And we respect that Carlton have got things that they've got, outside of our control that they've got on the agenda too, whether it be, Murphy's 300th game, and great effort by him to be able to get to 300 games of football. We know how challenging that. We just went through that with Travis. We know what that will mean to the Carlton Football Club. We respect that, and we wish him all the best. We don't want him to win though.
Bass flagged earlier in the week that Marshall would likely return and said that you missed him, or he thought you missed him last week. What is it about Todd that you missed and he can help bring this week? It's
a really hard one to sit here and 100% explain to you what I think Todd Marshall brings to our football team, because there's a lot of people out there with opinions who think he perhaps doesn't bring lots of things. But what you've seen last week, we think the cohesion of our forward line is a lot to do with what Todd doesn't always do with the ball in hand. It's a lot to do with the way he operates with the other forwards. He's a really smart and intelligent forward who knows his way around, knows when it's his turn to get in and out of the way, and knows when it's his turn to be in other positions. He does everything for the team, and I think we certainly did miss Todd last week. And as you all know, I'm reluctant to at any stage to leave Todd out of our team, but when we get a really fit and healthy squad, you've also got to play at a really high level to maintain your position in the side, as is Sam is this week.
Pre-finals guy, what's your take on the discussion around potentially moving that or scrapping that?
Tell me where we play, when we play, and we'll be there to play.
Ken, how deep are your midfield rotations now? Do you feel they're deeper than they were at the start of the year?
Well, they're certainly back to the depth they were at the start of the year because of the players that we've got back in the side. We think that obviously with Butters back in the team and obviously Robbie Gray back in the team, that certainly puts us in a position, and Connor also moving into some pretty good form as well, puts us back in a position. Dersman's also back in the team. So I think, and we've grown Bergman. I think Bergman's really grown this year, and that's really helped us adding another string to the bow in that midfield rotation. We've got a lot of people who go through there. Obviously the Drew Bow lines are pretty consistent. We've got 2 rucks that go through there. We can potentially use a 3rd ruck if we had to. We've got a lot of depth through our midfield, and we need that because the competition means you've got to play for 120 minutes, and you've got to have people as fresh as you can for those minutes.
Lockie Jones, the fastest healing player you've ever seen?
He's close. He's close at the moment, but I'd much rather him not have to heal, unfortunately. And it's quite a remarkable season for Locke when you think about, he's young, strong, really talented young player who's basically had no injuries through his career. In his first year in AFL, he's had syndesmosis injuries on both ankles. It's freakish, really, with what he's had to go and a couple of hamstring injuries. But he does get over them quickly, but we'd much rather him not have to deal with them.
So is he tempting you? Is he looking like he's going to be coming back earlier than expected?
Yeah, I think he'll be available for us through the back end of the next 5 or 6 weeks. I think it's probably unlikely that he plays next week, but I reckon the week after he'll definitely play.
Could he force his way back in?
Yeah, I love what he brings. I mean, and we as a footy team love what he brings. But what we want is them all available to have that opportunity to decide on that.
What's the latest on Hartlett in terms of his
recovering from his knee surgery?
Yeah.
He's on track. He's moving pretty well. We're again a bit like Lockie. We're optimistic about what that might be. Maybe not next week, but the week after certainly starting to look like it's a genuine opportunity for Hammer.
And what about Pepper? Is he likely to be your sub this week?
No, Sam will definitely play in the SANFL. We want him to have a game of football, so we won't make a decision on our sub until we get through today and with where that all is. But I can guarantee you that Sam won't be the sub unless we were to lose a genuine player in his position today for some reason.